So we're here today to celebrate scholarship and research. We're here to award two of our most impactful faculty members with a fellowship and an award, the Patrick Awuah Professorial Chair and the Hopper Dean Fellowship.
The two individuals that we're going to honor this evening are more than deserving of the honor, and over the years have really helped Ashesi build from strength to strength. We're small, but as with everything we've done, we should at least try to approximate what the best are doing. We should step up research on the faculty. We should honor the faculty.
I'm happy to name Dr. Ayorkor Korsah as the first recipient of Ashesi University's Hopper Dean Fellowship. For his dedication to students, service to Ashesi, Ghana, Africa, and the world, I'm happy to name Professor Nathan Amanquah as the inaugural recipient of the Patrick Awuah Professorial Chair at Ashesi.
We'd like to now have kind of a question and answer and just a conversation with the recipients.
So I guess I'll start with Dr. Nathan. So it's been 2 decades here at Ashesi, right? Just want you to share what the most significant changes that you've witnessed here at Ashesi are, particularly in your field, right?
Ashesi has gone from being a place where when you say I work at Ashesi, people ask you, where is that? And what does Ashesi do? To when you say Ashesi, it turns heads. People recognize Ashesi immediately. It's gone from not so well known to really very well known, the place to study or work. But within this 20 years, I've seen the introduction of the MIS program and the engineering program and now the mechatronics program. And those are significant. Also, the graduation of students, the first batch of students in 2005, as well as the first batch of engineering students in 2019. Those have been significant milestones for me.
Okay. Dr. Korsah, if you could also maybe touch a bit on significant milestones and then backtrack to what initially motivated you to pursue a career in computer science and how has that journey shaped your work here at Ashesi as well?
Ashesi feels much more like an institution, not a project, not an organization, but an institution. And that change has been palpable over the last few years, right? And so it's really exciting. I think one thing that was, I think a significant milestone in Ashesi's development was when Patrick took a sabbatical. I mean, whoever thought it would be possible for Patrick to step away, from Ashesi for, was it 6 months? I can't remember how long it was. And I think that is a significant milestone because the institution could survive. Only COVID brought Patrick back, right? Which I think is fair. I mean, we can be forgiven for that, right?
Yeah. What initially motivated you to pursue a career in computer science?
I never planned to study computer science. In fact, when I was in high school, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, we had a family friend who I think was studying computer engineering or doing computer engineering. And I remember him telling me that, you know what, I think you'll like this. And I very stubbornly said, no, never. I'm not going to sit in a room with a computer all day by myself. I'm never going to do that. I was adamant. But when I went to university and I took my first computer science class, I just fell in love with it. It was exciting. It was interesting. It gave a sense of empowerment because all of a sudden you were making this device do what you wanted it to do as opposed to what it was doing before, right? And that was basically what started me on that journey. And so I think what sort of led me through, it was a lot of curiosity, just wanting to know, wanting to understand, and realizing that feeling of power that, wow, you can actually create something and do something.
So connecting to Ashesi, how has that shaped your work here?
I mean, I want students to feel that same aha moment, right? That feeling of power, that feeling that they can create something, they can do something. And I would say that really drives a lot of what I do. As one thing that I like to repeat over and over again, and forgive me if you've heard me say it too many times, is that what we really want to do is we want to empower young Africans to become creators, not just consumers of technology, not just the next person using some app or some device, right? But they should be in the driving seat because that then helps you shape the world. You're not just living in a world that is shaped by other people. And I want to see our students do that and be at the forefront of that.
Impressive. Great.
Very
Great.
excellent. Thank you. I'd like to talk a little bit about both of your aspirations with the Professorial Chair. With the honor of receiving the Professorial Chair, how do you plan to use the opportunities it brings you to further your research, your teaching, and the contributions to Ashesi? So, Dr. Nathan, we can start with you.
So there's a lot that can be done. It takes some time to work out everything, but certainly working with students, I've come to the point where I realize that students start work. They do some work for 1 year and then they graduate and it dies. And others don't necessarily pick it up. I actually want to see the next dream over from engineering. And so when students finish their projects, I would like to have other students or research assistants continue to work on the projects to make them products that can go to market. When it comes
Those
to
who don't know Dream Over,
Dream Over, okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Right, so Dream Over was started off as a capstone project, a 3-part project for paying for electricity bills on a holiday or on the weekend when ECG is not open. So one group did some work on, one person did some work on making a phone call and following voice prompts to make your payments. Another person worked on the software for managing the bills if you walk into the office. The third person worked on a web-based interface for e-commerce. It was called iWallet. You can make your payment online. And that is what morphed into a company that became DreamOver. As a group of Ashesi students, alumni, who formed a company to make mobile payments. Today, it's a slight payoff, maybe something else, but it's used by some banks today for payments, yes. But that's where it started from as a project and it became a company.
And it's still an ongoing
Still running,
okay.
yes. So I would like to see this time from engineering, but also from computer science as well, projects that become products that become a company, hopefully. But for my own research as well, and working with in collaboration with my colleagues, I look forward to doing some more work in what I've already started. I do some work related to climate change. We talk about climate change, but how is it changing? You need to be able to monitor it to see how it's changing. You need things like weather stations and so on. So I've been working on developing weather stations without moving parts. Weather stations tend to have rotating caps to tell you the speed. They have moving vanes to tell you the direction. But you're trying to do that with machine learning by listening to the sound of the wind. Then it's all electronic. It's much cheaper. You can actually now monitor the climate everywhere more cheaply. So there's work we started. We actually published a paper on that this year. But we need to extend it because it's still early days. So work like that. We're doing some work in health as well, and fitness. So this would go a long way to help us acquire some of the tools that we need to do this research. It also gets people that are dedicated to working on this. In the past, right after my PhD, I wanted to do really very high-end work. I'll get students to try to understand the projects. By the time they understand, they graduate. Yeah, so I found a new strategy, and with this kind of funding, there's a lot more that we can do in terms of research and product development. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So I think it's an opportunity to continue, as Nathan said, things that have been started. So a couple of projects. I just started a couple of projects this year in collaboration with colleagues, and that is really going to occupy me a lot over the next year or two. One project is looking at, and this is funded by WISE. I keep meaning to tell you about it, Patrick. I don't know but it was through a connection that you made. But we're looking at measuring looking at the impact of artificial intelligence on higher education in Africa, looking at case studies at 3 universities in Ghana, and also looking at the impact of AI on the workforce. And this is part of a larger project involving 7 institutions across the world. So that's pretty exciting. We just kicking off. We just did we're about to submit our IRB application, so that's exciting. Another project is developing an Ashesi robot assistance platform. Wow. So I hope that this time next year, right, there will be a robot assistant running around on campus and want to use it. So this is a collaboration with faculty in engineering as well. We are using this to study two things. One is the technical feasibility of developing a robust robotic platform at a much lower cost than the types of platforms that are available globally, and then using that as an opportunity to study the dynamics of human-robot interaction in an African community context, because I don't know that anyone else is doing that, and we're interested to see how, if we have a robot platform running around campus, how does the Ashesi community respond to it? Basically, so those are a couple of projects, but then there are lots of sort of little things that are in progress, and having the time and space to kind of move them forward would be exciting. Yeah.
Very exciting.
Cool. I think I'm going to segue a bit from that same question. You mentioned this collaboration with engineering on the robotic on the robots. Now, aside engineering, how have you worked to sort of foster interdisciplinary collaborations between your department and others at Ashesi?
That's a good question. A couple of ways come to mind. One is Ashesi Innovation Experience, which is a high school enrichment program that we run, and this involves it. So it's about entrepreneurship, it's about engineering, it's about robotics, it's about the creative arts. So it involves faculty, FI students from departments across campus who work very closely together in a team, and that has been a really great platform for building relationships with people in other departments, very close working relationships. On another way is through the entrepreneurship capstone. So computer science students, apart from doing theses and applied projects, have the option of engaging in entrepreneurship as a capstone, and so there has been we've been trying to have some more collaboration with especially the entrepreneurship team. Beyond that, Ashesi every department depends on every other department, so especially with respect to the administrative departments, you find yourself working closely with registry, with academic advising, with student life, with finance. There was a time when finance said they would adopt me as a staff member because of AIX, because we were always, in their office. Now Felicity does a lot of that, but you build close working relationships across the university.
Great.
So there's a period when I supervised computer science projects, but I've slowed down on that because we have a big need in engineering for faculty. But it's something that we can pick up again. This year, a lot of students in computer science are taking a class with me because they want to use that knowledge for their capstone projects. So even though I'm not supervising them, they're going to benefit from the knowledge from the class I teach. But again, with other departments, we do a lot, especially with the mechatronics program. There are many moving parts. We're always in communication with the facilities team, arranging transport and things like that. So though it's not economics, there's a lot that we have to do with the other departments.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And I'm just thinking, also being here, I guess, this long, for 20 years, right? How do you approach mentoring of students, right? How are you guiding students and developing the next generation of innovators here at Ashesi?
So I try to make myself available. So students have figured out that if they send me an email, it takes a while to get a response because I'm always in some meeting or on the move. But if they send me a WhatsApp message, you'll get a response very quickly.
Right.
And they send me messages till midnight and then early in the morning. And they are sure to get a response very quickly. So that works. And I actually make use of that for teaching. So I give problems for students to try, and then they post it to me directly. I give them feedback. When it comes to capstones, there are no students I don't supervise, but they want to have my input on their project, so they don't have my questions when they're presenting, so to speak. But it's a form of coaching and guiding, and it works very well. I try to give students written feedback every time when they present. So by making myself available to students, well, at least from midnight, not from midnight to the morning, I make myself available and coach that way.
Okay.
I mean, primarily through the courses we teach, giving students the opportunity to do projects, really helping them understand that innovation comes from actually having a good grasp of the technical details, right? if you don't understand what you're doing, you're actually a dangerous person, right? Because you can. So really emphasizing that it's important to understand, right? And so that's a starting point. But then through things like capstone, etc.
If I may just add, based on my experiences in my undergrad, I got a lot of knowledge in my undergrad, but I hadn't really seen the components that we were calculating for. And so it was something that I was worried about. If I went to industry and they say, this thyristor, how does it, where is it? I can't identify it, but I can calculate everything about it. I try to get my students a point where they will have seen it, worked with it. And so I structure my project such that it becomes industry relevant. So lab work, once you do it, most likely you're going to see something similar in industry. So I think that's helped, and it's something I keep doing with the students.
I guess maybe we can go into your field more specifically and hear some broader perspectives on there, right? So there's a lot of talk about AI, and there's a lot of talk about computer science and engineering generally, right? And so looking ahead, how do you see the fields of engineering and computer science evolving, say, over the next decade? And how can you help Ashesi students prepare for these changes?
Right. So there will be a lot of AI coming our way, but from that main perspective, we always look at the curriculum and adjust it because the times are changing. When I came to Ashesi, I was teaching Java 1.3. Now Java is past 18, 19, maybe 20. So we would have to update the curriculum. It's something that we keep our eyes on. So sometimes we have to modify the content of a course. Sometimes we have to drop a course and add a new one, just to keep it fresh and relevant to industry.
Yeah, I'll echo. What's computer science going to look like 10 years from now? To be honest, I don't think I can answer that question. All I know is that computer science changes quickly, right? And right now, of course, we're talking, there's lots of AI. 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, we made the decision that it had gotten to the point where it shouldn't be possible for someone to graduate with a degree in computer science and not know anything about AI, right? And so at that time, we introduced a mandatory artificial intelligence course for all computer science and management information systems majors. Interestingly enough, in the most recent curriculum guidelines for computer science, so the 2023 curriculum guidelines published by the ACM, they have now AI is now a mandatory part of the, or suggested mandatory part of the computer science curriculum. And I'm excited that we were 2 years ahead of that change, right? So, which meant that we at Ashesi, in terms of the faculty, were paying attention to sort of what's going on and what we felt was important. And I think that's going to be important going forward. We need to keep paying attention. We need to figure out what's important for students to know, always keeping in mind that we want our students to be able to be in the driving seat, however this field changes. Related to that, and I think this is where there's still room for us to do better, is there are lots of ethical and legal and other issues surrounding all of these new changes in computer science. And we don't yet do enough, although Ashesi is very strong in ethics in general, and we do have an elective, technology and ethics course that runs a little bit irregularly, right? I think we need to do more in making sure that our students are really conversant with these issues and able to lead, because Ghana and Africa needs that, because that's one of the challenges that we have in Africa. There are not enough people who really understand these technologies, and so half of the time it's like we're following like sheep. We want to be in the forefront. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
I think since we looked ahead, looking back, Patrick called you a pillar. So I want to piggyback on that. As pillars, what advice would you give to younger and newer faculty members starting out at Ashesi, particularly in terms of making meaningful contributions in academia and industry? How would you advise young new faculty coming to Ashesi?
I think my key piece of advice is keep the mission front and center.
Nice.
Don't forget, I mean, where Ashesi has a mission, right? And I think it's an important mission. And it's our honor to contribute to that mission. And so everything we do is contributing to that mission. So yes, we're academics, we're doing your research, your publications, but if you get lost in the weeds of how many publications do I have and all that, we'll lose sight of what is important, right? And what is important is making sure that we are equipping the young people who are here with us with what they need to actually transform the continent, right? And in the process of doing that, yes, we're going to, make valuable contributions to disciplines. We're going to do research. We're going to do all the things that come with academia, right? But it's not the publication count that is the goal. And I think if with that in mind, right, then there's so much opportunity to do exciting things. There's so much opportunity to grow at Ashesi. But I think, just keeping the mission front and center would be my advice.
I would just add that I would say you should remain passionate about education, about teaching, and helping young ones or the students acquire knowledge that would prepare them either for graduate school or for industry. But on the other front, which is research, not to hesitate to write. Because for me, it took a while to actually begin to write. I wanted to do something really, really advanced, and I never really got there. But it's actually possible to write. So not to leave that and think to be done in the future, just begin to write.
Just start.
Just start.
Yeah. If you looked at your career, what has been your proudest moment at Ashesi so far? And how do you see the legacy of your work after serving this award term?
I think my proudest moment has been inviting some of my former students to be guest speakers in my class and recognizing that they know more than I do now.
Wow. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Amazing.
I can't remember. I think there have been so many,
hard when you're on
so
the
many,
spot.
so many events. I mentioned students graduating, different groups, also being selected as the best teacher for some of the years, but also helping students get into graduate school and they telling you that they're making it. It just makes you content that you're having an impact on the education. So those have been important moments. Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's really great. Great, thank you so much. I think we
Yeah.
have a round of applause for.
Yes.
So, thank you.
I think if there's any questions from the audience.
If you could change anything in Ashesi's journey, what would that be? If you could just hit the reset button, just one thing that you could change, what would that be in Ashesi's journey?
I'll not call it a change, but I like the early days of being like a startup. Everyone was very committed and got things done very quickly. We still do get things done quickly, but we did it quicker then. So that's something I would like to see more of, because we did a lot of things very quickly. We still do, we think we get things done compared to anybody else, really. But there are some things that we got quicker, done more quickly before. Maybe because we're smaller. But yeah.
You see, the thing is, even things that are not so good, when you recognize them and deal with them, then it sort of makes you even stronger, right? So there have definitely been times when maybe things were a little shaky. Like there was that one year where there was a lot of angst on campus. I forgot what year that was. So people remember, right? There was COVID, which was very uncomfortable. But for each of these experiences, I feel like we've grown out of it. So it would be hard to say, oh, I wish that didn't happen, because we don't know. So it's hard to answer that question.
Thank you very much. So not a question, but just to express my gratitude to my teachers. Yeah, both Nathan and Ayorkor were really great teachers. I was in the very first computer science class, and they got us to really understand what programming was. Yeah, for the very first time. Back then in 2002, 2003, really trying to understand the basics of Java programming,
Wow.
data structures, and stuff like that. It was really hard. Yeah, 'cause it was new for most of us in the class, trying to really figure out a career in computer science. So the early work that they did for us helped build our foundations to pursue careers, in products, in engineering, and so on. So I'm really excited that you got this first prize to carry out research and solidify the teaching and mentoring and assessment of students that you are doing. So thank you so much.
Your success story. Amazing.
Unlike Abdul, I wasn't lucky to be in your class. I was always very jealous, but I did business, so I guess I missed out. When it's all said and done, what do you want to be remembered for in Ashesi?
It's a hard question to answer, but I think for me, most of it would be related to having made an impact in the lives of students when it comes to education, having shaped how they think about problems and how they solve it. Because then they can go on to solve other problems. I won't be there with them, but they can solve it. Yeah.
I think I completely echo what Nathan has. I sometimes, tell my students that, look, I don't know. I mean, so for example, like, in terms of the field of robotics, for example, people often ask me sort of, what is that, most compelling application of robot? How is robotics going to transform Africa, or how is it going to play out? And I say, honestly, I don't know. My students will figure it out. My job right now is to teach my students, right? And they will figure it out. I don't have a crystal ball. It's hard to look into the future. And some questions I honestly don't have the answer to right now. But if I can help set them on the path where they are going to be able to answer those questions, then I feel like I've made a contribution.
Mine is not a question, but to actually re-echo all the appreciation from our end as an operations team. These two professors have always been liaising with us. Caspar, what can we do to make your operations better and efficient? I remember Dr. Ayorkor was talking about anytime you have visitors on campus, then we have to rely on students who will go around with people and talking and talking. What about if we build a robot that can go around and show everything, showing the map of the campus? I said, wow, that is great. And I'm very happy to hear she's really working on that. And hopefully by next year, we'll see something. That is a great impact. I will never forget you for that. For Prof. Amanquah, I know from the engineering department, we have our gate when you enter. Then we have the security men who will be in the rain and raise the bar up, come and pass, then they bring it down. Then Prof. and then Dr. Amma, I don't know whether he's here. They said, why? How can't we automate that, gate? So we lessen the work of the security men and also ensure that Ashesi, as a tech university, has done something good. I said, please take it up. I'm ready for it. And this year, I have a budget for you. And I'm very And I'm very expectant, looking forward to seeing that that gate is automated. And I know when that is done, oh, the impact will be more. And not only that, we were talking about a lot of plastics on campus. Just we are here, we've drank a lot of water.
Yeah.
And then these PET bottles. What do? We are also adding to the pollution. Then they came up against all that. Can you get me a crushing and baling machine for me to actually crush this so that it can be recycled again for use? He said, no problem. We can build this for you. They did a design, did presentation. I have it in my budget now. And I'm waiting for them to build that crusher and a baler for me. And when that is done, that also be another impact. And I know they have impacted the lives of so many people. They've impacted the community as well. And I'm very glad and happy that they have been awarded and recognized. Thank you so much for your work.
Yeah, all right. Well, I guess thank you so much for your time and
And congratulations to you both.
for your awards.
Thank you so much.